Oh, hello. Welcome, dear listeners. Another episode of In My Kitchen with Yvonne, where we whip up interesting and inspiring conversations that celebrate the power of education and well being. Today, I'm going to be joined by the extraordinary guest, Sam Moinet, the founder of Student Breakthrough, a former teacher with a passion for empowering students and educators alike. With a background in the military, really interested to hear about it and a heart for education. Sam's journey is as captivating as it is impactful. I would really love us to welcome Sam into the studio. Woo woo! Hi, Sam. We even have a little guy here joining today because he's so excited. He wants to see and hear all about Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hey Yvonne, great to be here.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm brilliant. Thank you for asking. Good to
Yeah,
be here
really
with.
exciting to have you with us today. Can't wait to hear all about your journey and your story. I want to start with entrepreneurship. So, how do you go from military guy, with all the stuff you're doing in the military, to becoming a teacher, and then, founding Student Breakthrough and all the lovely things that you're doing with students?
Yeah, I think it's important to note. Although the military was my aim for a long time, I never quite made it, and actually that's what sent me on this path of teaching and entrepreneurship. I think when I was a little boy, all I wanted to do is be a soldier, and all I wanted to do is make my dad proud. But what I found was that the more I wanted this, the further it got pushed away. And in 2012, I actually achieved the dream. I got accepted into the Royal Anglian Regiment of the British Army. And I was so elated. I was over the moon. I'd finally achieved what I wanted to do. But a couple of weeks after I got accepted, I got a letter through the post that changed my life. And
Oh,
this letter said, Sam, unfortunately, you can't join the military because I was diagnosed with a condition called Crohn's disease. And in that moment, everything changed. This is in 2012, and everything was shifted. It was the first real setback I'd faced. And as a result of that failure and setback, I ended up going into teaching. My mum was a teacher, and I thought, well, what else can I do? How else can I live my life? I don't just want to work at M&S, which is what I was doing during that time off. So I became a teacher. But the challenge was I took all of that pain and failure and feeling like a victim into my teaching role. I was never taught how to deal with that. I was never taught how to open up, how to express myself. And what happened was that my mental health really started to struggle. And I started to develop quite high anxiety and chronic insomnia. And this wasn't like, a bit scared of going to the classroom on Sunday. We have those kind of Sunday scaries. This was imagine like almost being pinned down in bed, and I physically couldn't get out of bed to teach. And there was many moments where I'd be up all night and I'd roll into school on half an hour's sleep because I was so anxious. I couldn't stop thinking. And it came to a head in 2015 where I cried in front of a class. And it was breaking down in front of a group of students that really made me realize I had to get some sort of support. And luckily, I found coaching. And on the 23rd of April, 2015, I had a coaching session. And all this guy did was really listen to me, ask me great questions, and was there with some silence. And for the first time, I felt valued and understood. After the session, I was really emotional. And it was a bit like taking the sunglasses off on holiday. And like the whole park I was in was vibrant. It was colorful because I dealt with some of my past challenges by talking. I actually was able to really develop slightly more resilient mental health. And as a result, I went back into school. And instead of feeling like a victim, I was starting to be a hero for my journey. And it started being a villain for myself. I was, again, a hero. I was really found out what I loved, which is education. And I then started helping students. And I started to really help students in my teaching role. I built great relationships. I just fell in love with education. And it all stemmed from this moment of coaching. But I started to see so many students that were struggling with anxiety, depression, not feeling good enough. And I've always been entrepreneurial. I come from a family of entrepreneurs as well, and I'm always trying to think of ideas. And I had the idea then in 2017 of, well, I can just teach history, or I could really help students with their mental health. And for me, I looked at becoming a therapist, a counselor, and I came down on coaching because I find coaching really proactive. It's action orientated, gets the results fast. And I became a qualified coach in 2017. And it was finding my passion and purpose. It was that storm cloud almost over me that I faced back in 2013 was like sunshine. I had like a vision. I knew where I was going and I wanted to coach. And I made a company called Student Breakthrough. And I made a program called the 3Bs, which is Boost, Believe, and Breakthrough. And then I left the classroom in 2018 to work with students one-on-one, not just teach history, but to run a business. And then, very long story. I've had many ups and downs. I guess as soon as I left teaching, I didn't know how to run a business. So I had to go back and get a supply teaching job. That was a struggle. That was a failure. And then in that moment, I started to work with students in the school, and that was a transformational experience. I was working with PP, looked after children, really coaching them on a deeper level, and they were loving it. And I started to run workshops, parent events, family events, teacher events. And then more recently, I've created another company called the Educators Coaching Academy, which trains staff in world-class mental health coach training techniques. And yeah, that's a brief version of my story from wanting to be in the military and having a very clear purpose to now running a business and helping students across the world.
Wow. Wow. You've been on quite a journey, Sam. And I think like lots of educators and are going to really identify with the struggles that you went through, especially that moment when you look in front of the classroom and you go like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I mean, I had a similar journey as well, but from a very different perspective, where you go through this dark moment of the soul, and that's when you realize that, you know what, something's going to change, going to have to change. So for you, I suppose the question is, I mean, when you're going through this and you have an option of therapy and then you have an option of coaching, how do you settle on coaching rather than therapy? And what's the difference between the two? Because this is one big thing that comes up quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think coaching is a nice gateway into understanding yourself on a deeper level. It's a bit like, let's say you've got a car that's run out of petrol and you're sat in the car and it's not moving forward. The best thing to do would be to start, taking action and putting petrol in the car. And that's what coaching is great for when it comes to personal development. It's actually like a little bit of petrol in and we can start going again. It's present focused. It's all about the future. And if I'm honest, sometimes you don't go that deep. It can be quite transactional, quite surface level. What action steps do I need to take? What can I do to move forward? Which is awesome. And that's why students love it, because it gets them moving forward. It's positive, it's proactive. And I really believe coaching and creating coaching cultures in school will change things. And therapy, I've started recently, probably in the last year. And therapy, we go back to specific childhood trauma, which we all have. If you have an amazing childhood, you would have had some pain, some trauma that you've taken into your adult life. And that's really specific. I'm talking like between the ages of 2 and 8, we go to very specific times. It's actually coupled with some breath work. But that therapy is very much focused on the past, very much focused on a specific moment in time. But as well, it's like a deeper level of awareness. And for people that are just maybe starting their own journey of finding out more about themselves, therapy is, it can be intense. It can be quite an intense process. It can be very emotional. It can help you really look within. If we're looking at the car analogy, we opened up the bonnet and we're looking at the engine. We're not just putting petrol in, we're tinkering with things. And that's why I think for me, they work great in tandem. But for me, the coaching approach was a great gateway into understanding myself better or deeper. And it's helped so many students and teachers find out more about themselves. So that's really the difference. Coaching is present focused, action orientated. and a lot of, also about the future. Therapy is more of a chat, lots of emotional breakdowns, but you're uncovering yourself, what's been going on for you for many years, and there's not much action to therapy. It's more of just a release, let's say.
Yeah, it's that challenge with human beings, isn't it? You made an interesting point at the beginning. When you said I was doing this and I was doing that. Sometimes we get so caught in the actions of what we're doing, and then it's the knowing yourself and how that thing that you're doing fulfills that part of you. So I suppose that's that combination that you're talking about. Having both of either. You can speak to somebody and get to the bottom of who you are, and then you can also speak to somebody and help you understand who you are, but also put together those action steps that you need to take to be the better person of who you are. We do something very similar where we work with educators, and we have the 4 personas. So we help the educators identify which of this is your persona. And by going deep into this persona and working with it, you can discover your superpower. And then rather than working with your kryptonite and also always wondering why, as an educator, I don't seem to be moving forward, it's because you're focusing on your kryptonite. Why don't you focus on your superpower more? And then it helps you to get there. What impact would you like to see in education? Because you've started, you're developing the students and you're developing the teachers. So what's your big impact? What do you want to see in education?
Yeah, I get, is when you say impact, is that like change? What would I love to see different? Or what
Yeah,
impact would I like to make
in
in
the
education?
overall improvement within education. So for you, what do you see as the biggest kind of, could you even be able to identify one big thing that is a big bottleneck in education? If you
Yeah,
were
I
to look
mean,
in 5
you know,
years, what would you like to see?
yeah. So there's many problems that we face in schools, and obviously what's happening is that teachers are leaving the profession. Not enough teachers are joining, and that's a big challenge. So I think the big thing for me is all about how we can create a more of a love of learning, how we can make a more creative educational space, and support our teachers, because they're the most important people. They've got the most important role to play in society. But when so many of them are leaving, and the negativity in the profession, which has been really intense this year, with strikes, with negativity in the press, and all the stresses of the job mean that teachers are leaving. Now, I do lots of great work with coaching, and not coaching of teachers, but training teachers in coaching. I coach students. I've done lots of different things in mental health when it comes to students and teachers and schools. But if I'm honest, like, you can make some better changes to, let's say, the curriculum. So let's say we reduce down the amount that we teach. We won't get into the topics that we teach because there's still some changes there. Let's just hypothetically say that each teacher at GCSE starts from teaching 4 topics, they teach 3 topics. Let's just use this as an example. Okay, so you've got your GCSE class, you're taking them through, you reduce the amount you teach from 4 topics to 3. Now, straight away, that's what happened in COVID, by the way. Now, straight away, what that does is that, firstly, there's a release of pressure because we're not trying to force feed content onto students. There's actually a bit more time to explore different areas. It means for you as a teacher, you can give better feedback. The students don't feel so um, uptight and worried about all the content they've got to learn. You can, like I said, explore new topics. There's less to mark as well, and you can just have more time with the students. So I'm here trying to improve mental health in schools. That example of just reducing what we teach. Now, it's not going to transform people's mental health. I understand that. But what it does show is that we can make a small, tiny change to something that's going to improve mental health. That'll improve everyone's well-being by even 1%, even 5%. So I think one thing to look at is the curriculum, the amount that we teach, and obviously reducing the workload of staff. I think the big thing at the moment as well is comparing teaching to other industries where, yes, the pay's gone up now. I think it's around about £40,000, which was a lot more than I was getting when I started teaching back in 2013. But still, like, it's still very rigid. You don't get any autonomy as a teacher. You're looking at your mates that can remote work from home. They can do this, they can do that. And I think for schools, it's really allowing teachers to have a bit more freedom. If they've got that free on a Thursday afternoon, let them go. Let them go and have more autonomy. So there's curriculum, autonomy, and I think the other thing for me is the focus on standardized assessment. which is just a big data generating process. Everything is data in education. It's spreadsheets. Everything is, you have to just input. By then, I was inputting random numbers into spreadsheets, blah, 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 blah. And the fixation with viewing students as numbers instead of actual human beings, and actually viewing our staff as just human doings. Staff just do. Like, these are human beings. Like, they need love, compassion, and care, and then they won't leave, and then we can create a flourishing system. But for me, it starts with the teachers, and if we can get things right for our staff, they'll then pass it on to their students and be the best role models they can be. Because, like, you can have the best buildings, you can have the best textbooks, but schools are nothing without the educators. And the real pandemic is the amount of teachers that are leaving and the lack of staff that are coming through. There's always been teachers leaving, but the worrying thing now is the recruitment is so low, that there's not those key places that are being filled, and that's what is alarming.
Yeah, the volume of teachers leaving and the speed at which they're leaving is it's of a great concern, because it's a huge drain, isn't it? It takes a lot to train a teacher. I don't know about you, Sam, but I had to do my postgraduate certificate for 9 months. But before that, I had a couple of degrees. So I had a business degree, and then I had a master's in international commercial law as well. So if you can imagine that amount of time that it's taken to get to where you have, and then you're in the profession for the better part of 3 years, and in that 3 years you burn out and you leave, and then the next level and the next. So you're 100% right. The teachers, ultimately, if we can have them stay longer, then we can have the cultures in the school last longer as well, because it takes time to develop a culture. And so the frustration, for the management, for the leadership, in constantly trying to instill a culture, and then as soon as you've trained people up, they've gone, can reduce. Let's make it a little bit fun now. I'd like to know a little bit about Sam. So, taking you back into the classroom now, can you remember your favorite teaching memory?
When I was teaching,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's the one unforgettable moment that still brings a smile to your face from the classroom?
I've come back home to my mum and dad's for like a month, and I was looking for something under my bed, and I found this old, like, Sports Direct bag, the bag for life. I looked in there, and there was all this stuff for my teaching, and I found a picture of me with my year 11 class. This would have been, they were finishing, this would have been 2016. And there's the whole year 11 class, and they're all smiling. And then there's a picture of me in this. It's going to sound crazy, right? This owl costume, this graduation owl, huge fancy dress costume, and I'm posing with them, and they're all there in the background. And don't worry about the owl costume, how I got that. It's a long story. But what I love that moment.
I was going to ask, but then I thought,
you can ask it. Basically, my mum and dad. My mum used to run nursery schools, and their oldest. The oldest pupils in the nursery school were called the Owls, and when they graduated, they had this kind of weird graduation owl costume that I shared with the students. And I never really spoke about this story, but I shared that because I always was teaching with my personality. I was always bringing fun, always bringing, like, enjoyment, not just like messing around fun. I'm talking like just being myself. The fact that I then dressed up in this owl costume, like, for their last day, and they really wanted me to do it, and I did it. And I always tried to bring an element of relationships are the most important thing. And we'd have debate lessons, and I'd dress up in a wig and glasses, and these were great memories for me, and it made history really important for the students, and lots of them ended up taking it further. And I think bringing a subject to life is super important, and creating that love of learning, but teaching with your personality helps you build relationships. And I can firmly say that most of the students really enjoy coming to my class, and I was myself, and I brought the energy, and they like that.
Sounds like that persona, you and I seem to embody kind of similar persona, because that's the passionate that, when we're teaching the eight will of the teacher eight will of life, we always talk about the persona of the passionate, and it's lovely to have that in the classroom, because that's kind of, we embody that, and we bring that into everything that we do. So I'm going to ask you about the second one, which I also would really love to know, which is what is your go-to comfort food? You know, like when you have those passionate moments and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. You like get up and, oh, at least I can taste this. This is my sitting in front of the telly, you know, wrapped up in your socks. I don't know if you. I always have like my hoodie top. I've got a top that's very woolly. It's my comfort top, and I have my comfort food. What is yours?
It sounds quite boring, but for me, it's beans on toast. I think I'm actually doing an event on
That was the
self-care a bit
only
later
food you
today.
made when you were in uni.
Yeah, it's a bit like uni. Yeah, but I think it comes down to just being a child, and it was like maybe one of the first things I made or learned how to do myself. And I think that's probably the link, the connection there between when I'm feeling a little bit low, I want to just kind of give myself a metaphorical hug. It's
Oh,
very inner child for me to sort of make beans on toast, I think. And yeah, it makes me feel good. It makes me like, it's very warming. It's very comforting for me. A bit boring, but I think it links back to inner child, which makes it a little bit more exciting.
I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's one of those where you know all you need is a can of beans and toast and plum plum. You have it. You can have it. That's the best comfort food ever, isn't it? You know, and like, well, it depends on what you love and enjoy doing. Because I know somebody who they loved cooking, so their comfort food was like this elaborate meal that would take a whole
No, no, no,
Saturday.
no.
I went one, you know, mine's ice cream. Open the fridge, open a tub of ice cream, and just push it
Yeah.
up. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to take you back to the classroom again now. I want to know, what do you think was your superpower? I think I've got a bit of an idea, but what do you think was your classroom superpower? If actually, let's do it this way. If you could have chosen a superpower and you are a superhero, what do you think you would have chosen as your classroom superpower?
If I was a superhero, if I was a superhero teacher, basically, and I could choose a
Yeah, yeah,
superpower.
yeah.
Wow. Maybe like not the Medusa, but you know, you got like eyes everywhere, so you can like constantly see, or like Mr. Fantastic from Fantastic Four, which is he's got these stretchy arms, so you can be at the front of the class and you can then like whoop and then like stretch and like help kids like in different ways. I
Yeah.
think
You're like,
any
Johnny, stop talking.
yeah, or like anything where you could offer like all of yourself to all
Yeah,
the students at once, because that's the big challenge, isn't it? You know, you've got someone once
yeah.
described teaching as, imagine you've got 30 corks in a pool and you're trying to push down 30 corks at
All of
once. Like
that. Yeah.
it's going to be really hard. They're all going to be like popping up and here and there. So yeah, I think the biggest superpower would be like having an awareness of every single student and being there with them, like fully present with them at all times to help them, which obviously that's why teachers are superheroes, because they're working with students with such diverse needs. Like if you've got 30 adults together,
Yeah.
you know, that's also a tough gig. But if you've got 30 students that are like, you know, learning, they're growing, they're finding out more about themselves, they've got their own challenges, they've got, you know, maybe healthcare plans, they've got, you know, special educational needs, and it's your job to teach them all. You know, that's why teachers are such superheroes, because it's not teaching a standardized person. Like everyone's different, but you get such like vast differences
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
classroom. You know, it's that's why teachers are superheroes.
Yeah. The test is standardized, but the students don't come standardized, you know, because you're going to be marking out of 100 for everybody, but you know, not everybody can put in that, you know, 90, 80, whatever, 30, 40, and you need to be able to map out some sort of way in which they will bring their best 30 or they bring their best 50 and they bring so you're constantly planning these lessons. I don't know if it was the same experience for you, Sam. I used to find sometimes you also have to kind of constantly be a different person. It's like almost you're acting when you've got different classes. You need to be this kind of personality with this class and this kind of personality. That was one of the hardest things to learn as a new teacher, because you bring you, don't you, and then very quickly discover, oh, okay, I need to do a bit of drama here.
Yeah, I think you've got to learn, like, obviously each class is different, and there's also a lot to be said about the vulnerabilities that you share with the class. You know, if I went back into teaching now, I'll probably share my story outright, you know, like I shared with you just now, because I think it really helps to build connection. but you want to do that to an extent. You know, you don't want to share your deepest, darkest secrets. But I think it's important to show your students that like you're a human being and that you care and you're there for them, and you've had your own setbacks, and this is how you overcome them. I think it's really important to share that. I think students respect that.
They do. They really want to know that, I'm seeing you every day. And at some point, somebody once said this to me, and it made it quite impactful, the kind of experience that you have as a student with teachers. This student sees you more than they see their mom and dad, because and at their best as well, because they leave home really early, and then they come to school, and then they leave. They leave when they're really tired and grumpy and exhausted, and you're that stable constant, and then all of a sudden you're gone. So it'd be interesting for us to know what kind of effect that will have on students with the teachers leaving as regularly as they do. So the last one then, do you have a morning ritual?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's changed a lot over the years. There's always some consistencies. I think the first thing, number one, the biggest thing I do is I don't look at my phone until I've completed this. I think the days where I slip up and I end up looking at my phone the first thing, my day is negatively affected, because the first bit of dopamine that we get that in that day is usually what then we tend to focus on for the rest of the day. So if you wake up and your first bit of dopamine is going through Instagram and looking at your profile or seeing what likes you've got or going on LinkedIn or whatever it is, right? Then your brain is actually programmed. So that's how you're going to chase dopamine for that day. And obviously you're starting the day like comparing yourself to others, reading what's going on in the news, and just a bit of doom and gloom, really. Let's be honest. Like it's, looking at your phone a lot of the time for me personally isn't that uplifting. So that's the first thing. Do not look at your phone. That's what I do. Don't look at your phone. First thing is to strong black coffee first up, and then move your body. And I think the fastest you can move your body means that you're creating this motion, right? So like changing your emotion starts by moving and creating motion. So whether that's lifting weights, doing yoga, meditating, going on a walk, the first thing I'll do after my coffee is then move my body. And that varies every single day. I went swimming this week. Doesn't really matter what it is, but I'm moving my body. And then I come back and then I journal for about 5-10 minutes, just really on how I can make today great, what I'm grateful for this morning. And then I write down like a positive affirmation, like an intention for the day. And then I'll start. So it's pretty loose, but in terms of that, it's no phone, black coffee, move your body, journal. Because you can get into this for so long. You've got those morning routines that people start off like 4:30 and they do all this stuff, like the ice bath, the green smoothie, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden it's like 1 p.m. and the day's gone, I think you need to have something consistent. And for me, that's works. But you got to find something that works for you.
I love that. So you done green smoothie? What's wrong with you?
I do have one smoothie.
I'm joking.
I didn't include that. Yeah, some of the routines are just crazy, like.
Yeah, love it. I think Robin Sharma, if I can, I don't know anything about him. I'm not affiliated to him at all, for mentioning him on the podcast, but he's got the 5 a.m. club, and I've given it a go. And I think that was one of the most fulfilling moments in my life. I was going through a really hard time. I had all sorts of things happening at the same time. And I was listening to, what's his name? Pete. I can't remember his full name, but he's usually on Clubhouse, and he mentioned Robin Sharma and the 5 a.m. club, and I said, I'm going to give that a go. And I used to wake up in the morning 5 a.m. and I do exactly what you've said, because that's what he talks about. He says, don't look at your phone. Make sure you do some movement. Make sure you do some meditation or journal or do something like that. And I can hand on heart say that probably that little period of time that I did that got me out of so much I was dealing with, and because I was able to come at life from such a different place. I cut back on that now. I don't do 5 a.m. I do 5:30 still, and I'll meditate. Yeah, I know. I don't green smoothie yet.
Yeah.
But I do a turmeric shot. I don't know if that counts. And
I
I
do.
bite. I don't make. And then I take my supplements. Then I get my son ready and I drive him to school. Yeah, so yeah, it's quite consistent. And I've kept that going, I think, now for the better part of about 3 years. Yeah, but yeah, lovely to do it. So can I throw in a bonus one? Do we have time to do a bonus
Yeah,
one?
we got time. We got time.
Guilty pleasure. Go on. What's your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. A guilty pleasure. I think one thing that I do to. I mean, I guess what's my guilty pleasure? I love skateboarding. I skateboard a lot.
Nice. Yeah.
Not sure it's a guilty pleasure, but I'm 32.
Yeah.
And
I suppose then it is, isn't it?
maybe a little bit. People associate that. I mean, for me, I love surfing, I love being at the sea, and when I'm not at the sea, I try and do as much like board sports as I can, whether it's wakeboarding or skateboarding or anything like that. And it's actually, at the end of a long day, getting out and doing that stuff is very mindful.
Yeah.
It's different to the gym. You're more sort of using your body and in flow, and you're like wakeboarding, you're on water, and your skateboard, you're still moving your body in a certain way. And I say it's a guilty pleasure because I don't know many people in their 30s that skateboard, but for me, like, it's a big release and it really helps me.
Yeah. And I suppose life is a bit of a web and flow, so it's kind of like you're moving with life when you do that. It's like dancing, and
yeah, it's anything that expresses yourself. And I think one thing, it's really important to keep learning and growing. There's so many people who make great discoveries in their 70s. Just because you're a teacher and you're doing a certain thing doesn't mean you have to do that. Like, there's so many possibilities out there, and getting in and trying something new at any age is so exciting. To be a student again, like, I only just started wakeboarding this summer, like, but to get back into being, bad at something, face planting,
Right.
and then being able to stand, and then being able to do some jumps, and having the confidence. It's just cool, like, to do stuff like that. It's great to push yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sam. No, before we wrap up, I'd like to extend a special invitation to all our wonderful listeners to go out and check out the Student Breakthrough. I spent quite a lot of time looking at what Sam's getting. What Sam's doing for the young people and for teachers, and he's got some great resources on there. But that's not all. So join us this August for 90 Days to Transform, where we'll be hosting a series of empowering webinars tailored to your unique personas, your superpower to make this school year your best year yet. Now, once again, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure having you with us on the show, and we'd love to have you again. Your story is inspiring, and what you're doing for young people, is just something beyond what anybody else is doing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Yvonne. I really appreciate it. It's been a great time today, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, dear listeners. Thank you for being part of our passionate community. Together, let's celebrate the joy of learning and the boundless potential of education. Stay inspired, stay connected, and remember, your journey begins right here in my kitchen. Thank you.